G'day guys, my name's Ross and I moved to Australia with my family during a global pandemic. Uprooting and moving to the other side of the world is difficult enough, and doing it with a family is just at least 3 times as hard, or 4 depending on how many kids you've got. It's really tough. So if you're thinking of moving abroad anytime soon, these are my 9 tips for moving abroad with a family. Tip number 1, think about what you want from where you're going to live. It's probably going to be the case that your new home is dictated pretty much by your job. So with that one factor limiting your choice, you're going to have to sit there and think about what you want from your new life. You're going to have to choose a location that not only suits your own needs, but also suits your personality and the lifestyle that you're going to want to live. In Australia, despite them all kind of sounding the same, there's actually a surprising difference in all of the main major cities. Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane to a certain extent have all over the last few years established themselves as these major metropolitan cities. But if you don't want the hustle and bustle too much, places like Adelaide and Perth to a certain extent, you can still kind of call them a big country town. I know I'm going to offend some people there, because you know, everyone wants to be the best. Wherever you finally decide to set yourself up in, make sure that you take the time to find a location that really matches what you want from your life. Do you need to live more rural because of your visa? Well, apparently the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast are rural, but they're also really difficult to find a rental at the moment, and they're really expensive. My best advice is to think about what you want from your new Aussie lifestyle, and then hopefully you'll be able to focus on a few different choices rather than having your sights set on a specific place to live. Tip number 2 is all about researching different areas. All the important things like transport, local amenities, the local property market, they all need to be researched. You're also going to want to look into other factors like the weather, what the economy's like in the area that you're wanting to move into, and not just look at Australia as kind of a whole. It's kind of a big place. And once you've found a city that you think is going to be suitable for you, you're probably even going to want to have a look into the neighbourhoods. Fortunately, there's loads of online places that you can go around and have a look and get advice from different people on different areas. We used homely.com.au for our preliminary research. Sounds a bit posh when you say preliminary. And once we've got some ideas of some different names and figured out how to pronounce them, we were then able to ask on some different forums and even some Facebook groups for people's actual opinions of the places that we had researched. Remember though that opinions are a bit like assholes, and everyone's got one. So take what people say with a bit of a pinch of salt, as not every area is everyone's cup of tea, and most people are going to value different things that you don't. Tip number 3, remember you're doing it for the kids. Depending on the age of your children, ours was like 18 months and she couldn't really talk, but depending on the age of your children, you're going to want to keep them involved and as valued in the process as possible. Despite what you think, children can actually be really sensitive to a house move, let alone moving to the other side of the world. Asking for your kids' opinions and actually acting on some of them, just like you, they want to feel like they're actively participating. And let's face it, it's going to make it a little bit easier if they're not just whinging all the time. If your kids are too young to talk like ours was when we moved, then think about what you're going to want for their lives. Of course the move is for you, but let's face it, if you're anything like me, the move was done for your kids. Tip number 4, do you need to take everything? When you're moving to the other side of the world in particular, you need to be practical and even ruthless about everything that you want to take. Moving to the other side of the world is a very expensive business, and you don't want to add in some extra costs by transporting crap to the other side of the world that you're never going to use. Listen to my pain as I say this from experience. Not only does it probably make more sense to buy new items when you move to Australia, it's also a nice thing to do. Treat yourself, live a little. Before you make your move, my advice would be to sell up as much as you can. Anything you can't actually get rid of for a fairly decent price, then just do the good thing and donate it to charity. To be honest, we didn't actually donate much stuff to charity because most of it was just crap that no one would probably really want. If you are interested in shipping some stuff and moving it over to Australia, we've actually got a video about all of our process and how we did it. Long story short, I don't think we needed to take even half the amount of stuff that we did. Tip number 5, you're gonna need to save. Moving anywhere is gonna be expensive, and that's especially the case for moving all the way from the UK to Australia. You're gonna have to factor in loads of different financial costs. Visas, flights, moving stuff to the other side of the world. Even what are you going to do for the first few months if you don't have a job? After you've done your research on things like property prices, rentals, day-to-day living, you're going to even have to look into things like like public transport and the costs of running a car. All of these things can vary quite significantly in the different parts of Australia, and websites such as Numbeo can be quite handy in looking at the prices of different cities. If you're interested about moving to Brisbane, we've actually got some videos about how much things cost for us, how much different supermarkets cost for food. So if that's something that interests you and you haven't yet, go and check them out. The most important thing to think about though when you're doing your saving is you really need a savings buffer, just in case everything doesn't go to plan. As long as you're flexible, I'm sure you're going to be fine. And if you don't end up using it, then you've got a nice little money pot just there. Buy yourself something nice. Tip number 6, and this I suppose only really applies if, like us, you move to the other side of the world with no friends or family to go and see. So for this tip, you're going to need some help. Depending on what visa you have, you're going to want to start looking into childcare options. In Australia, there are loads of different providers, and overall, childcare is probably about as expensive as the UK. The main difference here though is childcare subsidy, and that can make a massive difference if you qualify for it. Normally it's only available to certain visa holders, and if you've got permanent residency, then it's probably going to be okay for you. To check if you qualify, then speak to Centrelink or check on some of the government websites. If you want any more information on this, you can even check out our video on childcare subsidy. If you don't qualify, then probably one of you is going to have to spend a bit of time caring for your children. However, some advice from us as new migrants, we can definitely say that childcare for us is a godsend. When you first get here with no family or friends to look after your kids, you're definitely going to want to need a bit of a break. Oh, and childcare is like good for their development apparently too. Although sometimes it feels like we're using childcare to take a bit of a break, even though we are just going to work. On a serious note, we have seen Aurora develop so much since she started going to daycare. Sending her there is probably one of the best decisions we've ever made. Thinking about childcare and comparing it to the UK, I always used to wonder, was it actually worth it? Both in cost and quality. Looking at some of the UK childcare facilities, I often did wonder if I could actually do better myself. What Aurora gets in her new Australian daycare, I could never replicate. And sending her there has also allowed us to meet some other great parents and make some new friends on the way. Speaking of help, the whole process of moving to Australia is so stressful, and we couldn't have done it without the help of a visa agent. We had Aurora right in the middle of our visa application, and having a visa agent available to manage our application and change everything that we needed to was a massive weight off our minds. Aurora basically added about 6 months onto our wait time and just generally made everything more complicated. It sometimes makes me wonder why we had kids. If you don't have a visa agent yet, then speak to our friends at True Blue Migration Services and let them tell you for free what your best options are when moving to Australia. True Blue Migration Services are one of Australia's oldest and most experienced group of MARA registered agents. They aren't like old agents, most of them are actually quite young. It just so happens that other agents don't have as much experience as they do, so being old in this case might actually be a good thing. Let them assist you to be one of the 1,000 Australian migrants that they help every year to move to Australia from all across the world. They have experience in successfully helping people to get all different types of visas in some of the most complex situations. They can even help with citizenship applications. 2.5 years more to go. Moving with a family is tough, so speak to True Blue Migration Services today for a free, no obligation assessment. And after all that, if you do decide to go with them, and let's face it, you probably will, remember to tell them who sent you. Tip number 7. The climate is definitely a lot different to what you're used to, but most people don't actually appreciate how hot it can get here. Okay, I know that climate differs a lot across Australia, but to put it into perspective, the average summer temperatures are around about 30 degrees, which is like nearly twice as much as the UK. You also need to take into appreciation that the climate extremes in Australia are really much more than the UK. Now right now we're going through this kind of La Nina wet season, and I saw on the news this morning that just up the road in Gympie they had about 400 millimeters of rainfall in 24 hours. Now whilst I don't want to scare you off with all this different climate talk, you need to remember that when you move you're going to want to live life as normal as possible, and having that climatic omnipotent difference can sometimes make it a little bit difficult when realising that things are a little bit different. In southeast Queensland, summers can be really hot and really muggy, but we just change our lifestyles to suit it. Beach and pool instead of hiking and the park, well, it's not a bad choice, is it? And let's face it, it's only for about 3 months of the year. For the other 9 months, the weather over here is pretty darn perfect. And for most of the year, you can do whatever you want. You can even still go to the beach or in the pool, if you don't mind the water a little bit cooler. Embrace your new lifestyle for the opportunities that it can give you. We left the UK UK because we were fed up of being stuck indoors because it was too wet, or hibernating in darkness during the freezing winter. You can never have it all with the weather, but I definitely wouldn't change in this climate for the UK. And I know I'm gonna freeze the next time I go back to the UK in the winter. Just the thought of it makes me shiver. Tip number 8, stay connected with friends and family. This is so much easier now with modern technology. Moving away is hard on everyone, and especially with kids when there are even more bonds and connections to consider. Remember why you are making the move, and also remember that those strong family and friend bonds don't have to suffer just because you're doing it. Make regular contact a thing, and give everyone something good to look forward to. You might even find that the regular contact actually means that you end up speaking to them more than you used to. Yes, it's no substitute for actually being there, and you are going to miss out on some important events. But use this as motivation to make some even more special events when you actually get back together. Start new traditions and do things that you wouldn't normally do when you do see your friends and family. Your kids will love you for it, and to be honest, probably won't even know the difference. And tip number 9, which I think is mostly for the adults, but your kids are going to be the key to making new social opportunities for you. Kids have that beautiful openness and naivety that goes so well with meeting new people. Get them involved in all of the things that they used to do, and also encourage them to try out new things that they couldn't do before, and then piggyback off their new mates and make friends with their parents. Sure, there are going to be some duds, but this is a numbers game, and you're going to have to pump up those numbers if you're going to want to find some good ones.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Aussies especially are good people, and they're going to want to be your friends. As long as you have your kids in common, you're going to have something to talk about, and chances are they're going to be interested in your move. You'll probably just get annoyed about having to talk about it all the time. But don't be a whinging pom. No one likes a whinging pom. Thanks for watching the video, and if you found it useful or even reasonably interesting, make sure to hit that like button. If you want to check the rest of our lifestyle out now that we've moved to Australia, make sure to subscribe to our channel. And if you want any more tips about moving to this beautiful country, then make sure you have a look at that video there. Full of tips, me. Click on it. See you later.